entirely down to you, and if you have a confession, well, we'd love to hear it. You send it to its own email address is confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we choose your confession, you get a smart speaker. That's the deal, just to make it worth your effort. So, today's comes from Amanda. Amanda, thank you very much for sending us this. Dear Simon, oh, where to begin? This is a significant crime. A sin against rock.
Oh, what?
A sin against and a sin against roll.
Very good.
Yeah.
One of our best friends, John, is a big, and I mean huge, Kiss fan. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, what a name that is, and Peter Criss. The guys with the face paint and the outfits. The guys with the pyrotechnics and floating drum kits. You ever seen Kiss play?
I've seen them once, yes.
What did you think?
They have a great intro. You want the best, you got the best. The hottest band in the world, Kiss.
That's them, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't ask Katie Susie because Katie won't have seen Kiss, I don't think.
No, I haven't.
John first saw them in 1976 on their Destroyer on the Spirit tour. Since then, he has seen them, get this, 106 times.
Wow.
Okay.
In several countries. He's met all of the band except Paul Stanley, co-founder, frontman, rhythm guitarist, and co-lead vocalist. He even sat in the audience on Loose Women next to Gene Simmons' wife and Playmate of the Year in 1982, Shannon Tweed, when Gene was being interviewed.
Wow.
Hardcore. So basically, possibly the biggest Kiss fan of all
I
time.
would say so.
My husband David and I have never been to see Kiss perform live, which apparently is a crime in itself. As they were on their End of the World tour in 2019, John insisted...
Not.
Exactly. It's a word of encouragement for the kids, isn't it? In 2019, John insisted that we needed to see them as this is their last ever tour. Maybe. So in full makeup, with John's husband James, photo attached, we went to the London O2 Arena to see them. Got to give it to them, they put on one hell of a show. A show that will never be forgotten. Or the feeling of heat from the fire props. So now roll forward to 2021, when a Paul Stanley Facebook post asked people's opinions about the tour. I replied with some comment about how good the show was. And a while later, I had a like on my comment. And a like from Paul Stanley.
Wow.
The co-founder, frontman, rhythm guitarist and co-lead vocalist of Kiss. No less. I could not believe it. Quick as a flash, a screenshot later, the message was forwarded to John with a rather smug, "Look who's liked my comment then." And why stop there? I got a T-shirt made too. I had more of a response from Paul Stanley, co-founder, frontman, rhythm guitarist and co-lead vocalist of Kiss, than John, and he'd seen them 106 times. A week or so later, Paul Stanley private messaged me. OMG, a seismic moment in anyone's life, surely. A private message from Paul Stanley. Let me see what it says. Click on this link. At that point, the sudden dawn of realization hit me. His page had clearly been copied, and it was a scammer who had liked the comment and later messaged me. No, this was awful. How could I have been so dumb? Obviously, the great Paul Stanley, co-founder from was not going to message little old me. So obviously the decent thing would be to come clean to John, who was obviously slightly crushed by our apparent good fortune. However, it kind of seemed more fun not to.
Yeah.
By then, the newly printed T-shirt had arrived. With COVID, it was Christmas before we got to see John and James again. By then, I'd forgotten all about the T-shirt until my husband David, who had a few drinks, disappeared, returning wearing it in full gloating style, chest puffed, pointing at the like photo attached. And then see, there's a photograph, and clearly it's a T-shirt just of the post.
Commitment.
Yes, making a big thing about the fact it had been liked. Well, their end of the tour, surprisingly, is still going. So John, as their devoted fan, will be travelling from the UK to see them in both Paris and Amsterdam this year. He travels knowing that an apparent injustice has been perpetrated in the world of rock by his favourite band. Well, let the record now state that we're putting that wrong to right. Here we go. Father Simon, I beg forgiveness for not confessing to John that Paul Stanley never liked my Facebook comment. I had never told him until right now. He hasn't heard of me, Paul Stanley, that is, and he has never had anything to do with anything that I have ever done. Please forgive me and my husband. Thank you very much. From Amanda. Well, it's always good to have a confession from the world of rock, I think. Yeah. And that's definitely what we had there, because no one in the world of Kiss got in touch with Amanda, but she still made a big thing about it. Sister Katie Susie, what are you saying here?
Do you know what, Amanda? I'm actually going to forgive you, because I think it was a genuine error. There are a lot of these kind of scam type things on Facebook, and it sounds like John has enough Kiss-related memories that he can get over this. I mean, if you've been sitting next to these people at Loose Women, going to all the tours, I don't think it would have actually caused him that much grief. So, Amanda, you're forgiven.
Brother from another guy.
I mean, getting a T-shirt to put a social media post on, that does feel next level, doesn't it? I have to say fair play to the scammer for knowing the members of Kiss. I mean, the scammers that come to me don't seem to be that well informed. But I am going to forgive just because I love it. I love it when bands do tours that suggest we're never coming back. This is definitely the last one. Absolutely, come and see us now. Oh, 3 years later. Here we are again. Lovely. Definitely forgiven.
Okay, so it's forgiveness in the studio. How about you? It's entirely down to you. On the text, please, 61054. You start your message with Simon. Anyway, on the confession front, today's was a sin against rock and a sin against and a sin against roll.
Very good.
Because Amanda let one of her best friends, John, who's a huge Kiss fan, seen them 106 times, believe that their top man, Paul Stanley, had been communicating with them, and it turned out to be a scam. Once they found out it was a scam, did they tell their friend? No, they didn't. They had a T-shirt made out of the post, and they lauded over it. They
lauded it over him.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
Until now. And the people's verdict is in. Here
and
it comes.
It's a split verdict tonight. Absolutely not forgiven, says Dutchie in Leicester. This is a cardinal slight to her friend, who'd no doubt have exploded in ecstasy had he had communications with the Kiss frontman. But Lisa says definitely forgiven. My friend's an Oasis super fan, and I'm not sure I'd find the bravery to fess up if it was a similar situation with one of the Gallaghers. And finally, Rachel says, I'm not forgiving Amanda or her husband just because of the T-shirt. Poor John. Let's hope he wasn't listening. I'd add more, but I'm having operating issues with my nauticulator, which I need to sort out before sunset.
Well, then I think there is such a thing as a nauticulator.
I don't think there is.
It's where our sunset desk, they have an nauticulator to work out.
Definitely doesn't exist.
Can you use that to indicate whether you're turning left or not with an nauticulator? Did Ken Dodd have an nauticulator? Oh, something
right.
like that.
Yes.
Anyway, if you have a confession and it involves Kiss, chances are we won't be able to broadcast it, but if you do have one we can broadcast, or if you have a rock and roll confession, or maybe that's just made you think, you know what, I could send it one, because Amanda has just got a smart speaker. And if you fancy one, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. So, if you have a confession, we love to hear it. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Once you have your verdict sorted, you text it to 61054. Start your message with Simon. Here we go with tonight's tale, which comes from Maggie. Maggie, thank you very much. Father Simon, I'm going to take you back some 43 years to my... By the way, I should say, if you're eating, this might be a little bit problematic. Some 43 years to my college days. In 1979, I was in my second year as an English and drama student. Matt's favourite. We only wore berets at weekends.
Obviously.
My confession is set in the 1960s purpose-built blocks that were set around a quadrangle where the students all lived. Scrivens was the girls' block, and opposite was Rowan, the boys' block. And this block housed the, in quotes, elite sportsmen. Lots of testosterone and sweat, Father Simon. Just like no, not at all. If my memory serves me, there were 20 males to every female. But we, the girls, would dance on the dance floor and listen to our favourite hits every weekend. I Will Survive, Le Freak, When You're Alone with a Beautiful Woman. All those greatest hits, favourites. What moves we had. We thought we looked great and often had a little wink or smile from an admirer, which would make the evening even more special. Happy days, Father Simon. There was always banter between the boys and the girls' block, many pranks and forfeits and so on, always designed to make us laugh and never malicious. However, early October 1979, soon after the start of our second year, the practical jokes started to take a more ominous tone. In the early hours of a Sunday morning, some of us were woken by a single ear-piercing scream, the owner of which was en route to the shared toilet facilities on the corridor. In those days, no en-suites in your room. Naturally, I jumped out of bed. In the darkness and confusion, I felt something strange underneath my feet, but I didn't look. I just rushed towards the scream. A few of us gathered, dazed and confused with what we saw. The corridor was covered, completely covered, with what at first looked like an off-white coloured blanket that was camouflaged in the whole corridor. On closer inspection, we realised it was moving. Many expletives were then said. In front of our eyes was the sight of nightmares, a spine-chilling horror movie. There were literally thousands and thousands of maggots. Yes, what? Maggots moving with purpose and determination on a mission. In amongst the pandemonium of squeals and alarm, the lights were switched on. This only intensified these light-sensitive beings to squirm away from the bright light. They moved in every direction, some for the darkness of the unoccupied rooms, others were making a rush for the stairs and started descending to the floors below. Maggots were falling everywhere. It was here that we found 3 large empty plastic containers, which had obviously been abandoned by the culprits once the deed was done. Clearly they'd been purchased from the local anglers. Like a military team on a mission, we went into organisational overdrive. We raided the cleaning cupboard and started to sweep the maggots. Some put on their marigolds and put the captured maggots into their previous home, but there were so many. The vacuum cleaner was then discovered. Some of the girls passed out when they witnessed what lay before them. It just added to the frenzied drama of the occasion. 2 policemen and a policewoman now appeared, having been summoned, clearly young and new to the job. It was obvious that the policewoman hated small moving creatures and insects, especially maggots. One policeman found it very amusing and kept making jokes, all inappropriate, and the other was from the serious squad and wanted to make arrests and maybe make a name for himself by bringing those responsible to justice. However, once they established that we didn't have a clue what was going on and they were not going to help in any way, shape or form in clearing up, they left, the policewoman making shrieks as she tentatively made her way to the stairs, treading on maggots as she went. As the sun was rising, we ceremonially took the containers, the bin liners, the contents of the vacuum cleaner and emptied the maggots into the middle of the rugby pitch. Now, I apologise at this point for what we did to the maggots. OK, I don't know what the rules are about maggots, but we basically set fire to them.
What?
A few that had realised what was about to happen crawled away, but were then feasted on by grateful birds who were up early to view this unusual spectacle. I'm sure that's probably not allowed, but it might be fine, because if you put them on a fishing hook, then, you know,
yeah,
why not? As you can imagine, the gossip spread and questions were asked the next morning. The Chancellor saying that all this nonsense had to stop.
Yeah.
No one was quite sure who was responsible. Names were put forward, but no one ever knew. After that, the pranks went out of fashion for a while, as the night of the maggots was never to be matched or repeated. Though we did a grand job of cleaning up, I clearly need forgiveness from the collective for those students who were away for the weekend. We could not clear their rooms. On their return, they were horrified to find maggots in every nook and cranny, in their beds, in their wardrobe and cupboards, in their clothes, literally everywhere. Of course, the real problem was what happened a couple of weeks later. The infestation of blue bottles.
What?
Hundreds and hundreds of them desperately wanting to lay their eggs in any food that was left exposed in the kitchen or in the rooms of exposed students. This problem seemed to be with us for a long time. Also, I need forgiveness from the cleaners, who never really knew that their vacuum cleaner had been used, and forever complaining about the blue bottles that seemed to live in their cleaning cupboard. And finally, I seek forgiveness from the greens man, who had to replace the burnt-out patch of grass and restore the pitch to its former glory. And for this, I am truly sorry. Well, there's an awful lot to forgive there, I think. I think it's a little bit drastic, but anyway, imagine that. Thousands of maggots at like 3 a.m. That's going to be scary. Sister Katie, Susie.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been that the boys just took it to a next level and it got out of hand, but I am curious, Maggie, as to what you did to then warrant them doing this prank.
Yes.
I feel like there was definitely something before this happened. I can't forgive you just because I'm now terrified to go home. I have a horrible feeling that there's going to be maggots in my wardrobe or something. I'm very stressed. So you're not forgiven. I'm sorry.
It does sound as though they work their way into every crevice.
Oh, yeah.
Brother from another gutter.
I mean, no one really comes out of this story well. I mean, setting fire to the maggots. I've seen them live. Setting fire to the maggots feels like a little extreme. I mean, surely they'd have just burrowed down. I'm not an expert on maggots. So I am going to forgive, just because they probably had it coming, the maggots or whatever.
Really, they deserve it,
probably, you know. I mean, how many listeners have we got who are maggots? Probably not many. So I'm just going to come out against them. So, yeah.
Okay, so you are going to forgive.
Anti-maggots.
Okay, so it's divided in the studio. So it's the people's verdict. Who was it? Maggie, that's
Maggie.
right. Do you forgive
Maggie
Maggie?
and the maggots.
61054. Start your message with Simon. Forgiveness or no, the people's verdict is incoming. Just before 6, we had Maggie and her maggot confession. The people's verdict like this.
Yes, Michelle says, not forgiven. The poor cleaning staff. They also sweep up easily. There's always a river or a pond somewhere. Why on earth would they set fire to them? Yes, indeed. Mike on the A303, though, says, I'm going to say forgiven. But also, as a keen angler, there's nothing wrong with maggots. In fact, it's given me ideas for my own pranks. And finally, Ali says, totally forgiven. Who needs I'm a Celebrity when you've got confessions like this on drive time?
If you have a tale, confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Maggie gets the smart speaker. By the way, yesterday we had a kiss confession, and the subject of the confession was John, who sends us an email.
Oh, really?
Simon and team, I was referenced in yesterday's confession provided by Amanda, who so cruelly taunted me with her Paul Stanley from Kiss likes on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I feel remarkably calm knowing this now. Yesterday was a different emotion. I would like to mention that Kiss made an excellent album entitled Revenge.
Oh.
Good word, that, says John. See, these confessions live on. Anyway, it's 14 minutes to 6. Hello, good afternoon. This is Greatest Hits Radio. And it's confession time, so gather round. And we're going to give away another smart speaker because that's what happens if we use your confession. So send in a belter. Confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. When you've heard Dave's confession for tonight, your verdict 61054. You start your message with Simon. Dave says, Father Simon and the Continuously Calm Collective.
Yeah.
My confession dates back to Christmas 2017. We're going early on a Christmas confession, I realise that. But
Yes, very early.
Never too early.
I couldn't keep hold of it for too long. The time when I'd recently left a job. In this job, I'd met someone who's to become a great friend. We'll call him James. It's not his real name. He wasn't the reason for me leaving. It was entirely financial because I got on well with James. That doesn't actually make sense, but anyway. I got on well with James. He wasn't the reason I was leaving. It was entirely financial.
That makes sense.
Reorder the sentence.
Yeah.
There you go, Dave. We had a lot in common, particularly a rather odd sense of humour and a shared passion for history. After leaving the job where I worked with James, I got a new job at a marketing agency. And with them being marketing types, obviously what with it being a marketing job, they wanted to make a video to send to clients to wish them a happy Christmas. It's one of those tedious videos where the lyrics to a well-known song were changed to make them fit the mantra of the agency.
Oh, no.
And everyone had to wear Christmas jumpers and pretend to have fun with their colleagues as we frolicked in the snow. In this case, it was Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas that we mutilated. Something about All I Want for Christmas is more open rates for email campaigns.
Catchy.
Yeah.
I didn't stay long in that job either. Not for financial reasons this time. I just didn't like the idea of enforced fun. I think Dave is quite a tricky customer.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Nothing ever suits him. Anyway, Christmas jumpers were duly worn, smiles were worn out, and the video was recorded. The raw video file was sent away to be edited and made into something cheesy that you might want to watch for 10 seconds if you were really, really bored. It's now a few days after recording the video at work. It was a Saturday, and I went into town to peruse the wares of our numerous charity shops, particularly to look at the CDs and records. Before I go on, I should explain that my phone has a useful function, as indeed your phone may well have a useful function, where it speaks the text messages. Very handy when I'm driving because I can hear the message being spoken. I've always got this turned on, and whilst it offers no privacy, it's helpful when I've misplaced my phone in the house. So, as far, obviously that could be a disaster waiting to happen, and just so happens. On the confession then, as I strolled down the high street without a care in the world, I had a message from James. With the noise of the passing traffic, I couldn't hear what my phone was saying. So I got it out of my pocket and read his text. Being a man of advancing years, I have to stand still when operating my phone. Me too. Great singing in the video, lol, was the message with a laughing emoji. How the dickens did he know about that? I thought I hadn't told him what we'd been doing at work. I replied straight away, "How do you know about that?" And then I pressed send. I then went into the next charity shop. This one was particularly quiet. In fact, I was the only customer. It was just me and a genteel, elderly, frail lady volunteer who smiled at me as I entered the shop. I walked towards the music section, and that's when it happened. My pocket vibrated. Then, in this quiet shop, where a dropped pin would have caused disharmony, an electronic voice from my phone said,
"I'm always watching you. Ha, ha, ha."
What?
"I'm always watching you. Ha, ha, ha." At this point, the poor lady looked up from sorting through the donations and stared at me. She seemed confused, and I could see a look of fear in her eyes as she wondered who was watching her. Then came,
"There's always someone looking at you. Someone's looking at you."
What?
which is the old Boomtown Rats.
Yeah.
Someone looking at you. Oh, that one. But now this was getting tricky. Father Simon, I did what anyone would do in this situation. I pretended it wasn't me and I wasn't responsible. Admittedly, that's pretty difficult in a shop that's bereft of customers. I am the only one in there. So I continued browsing the CDs, waited until she'd finished looking accusingly at every corner of the ceiling, and then, just as I was hastily retreating to the door, came the third message.
"Please could you stop the noise? I'm trying to get some rest from all the chicken voices in my head."
Please could you stop the noise? I'm trying to get some rest for the chicken voice in my head. This is, of course, Paranoid Android by Radiohead.
Oh.
And it was the last straw. I ran to the tea shop and turned off this speaking text function, which had caused me just such embarrassment. With shaking hands, I managed to work this thing. You see, what I now know is that the video was sent to the company where I used to work, the company where James still worked. James had seen the edit, and then he'd chosen to wait until Saturday morning to laugh at my vocal skills and send me the messages. I am seeking forgiveness, Father Simon, for that frail lady that was happily going about her day in late 2017 until she received notifications from the electronic voice that she was being watched. I often wonder about her and if my messages caused her an onset of paranoia. I'm hoping she's over it now and soon realised that she actually isn't being watched at all, but it was just so that crazy. Nice. Those the cross-fading skills.
It's so
Getting
good.
better.
I rehearsed that one.
Never lose that talent. do you?
No, I think that's one of my best ones. Anyway, Dave and his talking phone, Sister Susie Katie.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, she must have been terrified. If something like that happened to me, I would spend the rest of the day watching my back. And I think it's fine to have messages read aloud if you're in the car or if they're coming through your headphones, which is what I do. I find it really useful. But you're not forgiven, Dave, because if I was your friend texting you and I knew that you were just airing my text to everyone in public, I would not be very pleased. So I think you should probably improve your privacy measures, and you're not forgiven.
It's a very contemporary confession in that respect. Brother Matthew.
It is. I mean, I'm going to forgive because I think she had a great story to tell, and I'm sure she wasn't. I mean, I've been a little unnerved by my phone doing that, particularly because we're all on the same WhatsApp group, and suddenly I'll be interrupted on my way home by Katie on WhatsApp says, "Play ABBA next." Simon on WhatsApp says,
yes.
Yeah, that's
"Boom
how we run the
emoji,
show."
boom emoji, boom emoji." So I am going to forgive.
Okay, it's the people's verdict then. 61054, the text. First word is Simon. 61054. Do you forgive Dave, yes or no? I wonder if this might be a kind of a rich area for confessions. I'm not sure. When you've been embarrassed by your phone, which has been speaking messages out loud. If you've got a tale for us, it's confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. On the way. Meantime, let's get some verdicts in. Tonight's confession from Dave, who had his phone set to a function whereby his texts were spoken out loud and scaring a genteel elderly lady volunteer in the charity shop. Anyway, Dave gets the smart speaker already, but this is the verdict.
So Jill says forgiven on the basis that the lady in the shop probably told all her friends and they all had a laugh about it. But Alex in Blackpool says not forgiven, I'm afraid, on 2 counts. He has his messages on loudspeaker. What if it was a personal message? Also, why didn't he just apologise to the poor little lady volunteer and explain it? Could have all been nipped in the bud. But Laura says forgiven because you've just convinced me to turn off that feature on my phone so that nothing similar happens to me. You took one for the team, Dave.
Maybe there are other tales to be told. If you fancy a smart speaker, send us your confession. Here's the email, confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.